Inside Utah Politics.
Time now to dig deeper into the election results with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have former House Speaker Greg Hughes and former Salt Lake City Councilman Charlie Luke, and apparently we just dragged Hughes right off the street today.
No, this is...
Now, you did this on purpose.
This is United States Senate look.
I'm going to tell you right now, this is the attire of a United States Senator if you're from Pennsylvania, apparently. Duquesne
Which you
Dukes.
are.
Yes, I'm from Pennsylvania. My cousin graduated from Duquesne University, which is 8 miles from Braddock, where Fetterman pretended to be a mayor and went to 40% of his meetings. But hey, this is the uniform of a winner. You can wear this in the United States Senate now. So,
and if I was into gimmicks, I could follow the Jim Jordan, look of attire and just go in shirt sleeves and take my jacket off. So, I'm beyond gimmicks in politics.
I like the trend. I'm just trying to follow the lead of winners, and you can be a United States Senator in a hoodie.
Good times, but let's get into some substance real quick, shall we? All right. Greg, all the conditions were there, ripe for a red wave. It turned out to be more like a red trickle. What happened?
I think it trickles maybe to the glass not even half full. Let me just say this. When we started this election cycle, it was said from the beginning that the House looked very favorable with redistricting for the Republicans to take it over. The Senate was always inherently harder. There were 20 seats to defend for Republicans, Senate seats, 13 Senate seats for Democrats to defend. 15 of those 20 that Republicans were to defend in the Senate, they won handily. The seats that were up for grabs, there were more Senate seats for the Democrats that were up for grabs. But right now, as we sit today, we have 49 Republican seats, and the Democrats have 48. You have a couple seats that are still up in the air, and probably going into overtime in Georgia. So if I'm feeling bad, it's because I had Vegas telling me that my team was going to win by 2 touchdowns, and I'm going into overtime in a game. But the game hasn't been decided. And if you win the game and you take both the House and Senate, I don't think anyone from the Republican side will call it a failed election.
All right. Charlie, your thoughts from election night. What happened?
That is some serious spin because, when you look at it, historically, we've never seen anything like this. We've never seen a president that has a below 40% approval rating and in the first midterm come back and not just get completely blown out of the water. For me, I think that it really comes down to the quality of candidates. And I think that you look at Oz, you look at Herschel Walker, you look at some of the states that you have these problems in, and that's playing into it. So, I think when we look at it, though, there definitely was a red wave, but it was a very small red wave. But the red wave was in Florida. And so Republicans ought to be looking at Florida as a way to break away from Donald Trump if they're smart.
I did want to bring that up, but Greg, go ahead and
let me just say, to Charlie's point, I know that Democrats love to pivot to Trump and the weight or the quality of candidates. John Fetterman was not a good candidate. I'm sorry, in Pennsylvania, he still won. I think Oz was more someone that can reach across the aisle. I don't think that was the bad candidate in the candidate contest of who was good or bad. But I will tell you, this is something that Charlie said on election night. Well, Charlie said this on election night, and we knew all along that about 4 to 5 states could be decided by as little as 100,000 people. The 18 to 35-year-old voting demographic showed up in ways we have not seen before. And I would actually put the difference of a stronger Republican turnout or success versus a lower one on the younger vote. 18 to 35-year-olds voted in a much higher percentage, and I think they had their impact in these races.
I absolutely agree with that, especially nationally. I don't think we saw that as much locally, but nationally, especially in these close national races, the younger vote really did turn out, and I think that's also why you saw as much inaccurate polling data coming into play, because I think that demographic was ignored because traditionally they don't vote.
Yeah,
okay. That brings up a good point. I'm going to come back to this national thing, but that brings up a good point of local. So we saw pretty good turnout from the Republican side, and in Salt Lake County, Democrats, you'd have to say, had a good night. So did we see Republicans saying no thanks to their own party nominee in Salt Lake County and voting for the Democrat instead?
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw that not only in Utah, but we saw that a lot nationally as well. There was more ballot crossover and inter-party crossover, which frankly I think is a good thing. I think it's good. I think it demonstrates that in spite of all of the negative ads that have been running, the voters were able to kind of dissect what those arguments were. And so, as someone who follows politics, I take this as a very positive takeaway, because I think that ballot crossover demonstrates that people are actually thinking about issues and they're focusing on specific races rather than just going with the team mentality.
Greg, your thoughts on what we saw as far as ballot crossover is concerned?
I think still, because we have probably 170,000 ballots, and those are probably same-day votes that have yet to be counted. There's still a story to tell on what happened here in Salt Lake County. But I do agree that you would think in a year like this, you would see with a higher percentage of registered Republicans voting, and even a chilled response from unaffiliated voters, which there's a lot of Democrats that are in that voting bloc, or people that identify left of center that are unaffiliated. So that looked like all arrows were pointing towards the Republicans. We saw a candidate 2 years ago that was 25,000 votes behind at this time during the election, and by the end of the counting on same-day election, overcame that deficit. There are some gaps about that size that we could see Republicans still overcome, so that story hasn't been told. But it is true that when you saw the voter turnout the way it was, it would be reasonable to expect Republicans to have a stronger outcome in Salt Lake County.
I will say that when you look at the numbers and when you look at the vote totals as they currently stand, I do think it's going to be really difficult for anybody to overcome the leads that most of those races have. We do have some that are still, a handful of votes that are separated, but by and large, I don't think that we're going to see, a trend that's going to come in last minute.
Yeah. I will also note, as of recording, 2 incumbent Democrats in the state house are behind in their races by about 4 percentage points. Okay, back to the national scene. Overall, when we take a look at what we saw from this election, what lessons need to be learned from your respective parties going into 2024? Greg, let's start with you.
I think that what you saw in Florida is an amazing demonstration of leadership from a governor. I think that Marco Rubio did very well, but I would argue he rode the coattails of a very popular governor in Ron DeSantis. You have there was no pulling punches. Ron DeSantis won the governor's race with 7.5 million votes with less than a percentage point. Typically, that would leave a public servant looking over their shoulder a lot, worried that they would offend anyone because they won by such a sliver of a vote. But he didn't. He made hard decisions, and he took very strong positions, and he brought the people of Florida along. Plus, you saw about 600,000 new registered voters from the time 18 to 22. So I think that there's a template, a blueprint there. I think strong leadership is appreciated, and I think that he's done a phenomenal job. And if I'm a Republican, and I am, I'm looking at Florida and their success in what was a mighty swing state.
Right.
And it's in the red column now. Follow that path.
That's been in the last few presidential elections a swing state, no doubt, and he just won it easily.
DeSantis did something that I think every Republican ought to be paying attention to. And I will say this: I fundamentally disagree with almost every issue that Ron DeSantis stands for. I disagree with his approach.
I think that's all right.
I disagree with everything about the guy, but he has figured out a way to move forward. If the National Republican Party was smart, they would see this as an opportunity for somebody who could potentially get in front of the MAGA parade, move Donald Trump aside, and focus on Ron DeSantis.
Okay, so what
if that were to happen, that is really the only opportunity, because I think as long as Donald Trump continues to insert himself into the body politic nationally, Democrats are going to continue to do what we're doing, which is exploit the heck out of the craziness that is Donald Trump.
What would a smart Democratic strategy be based off of that?
A smart Democratic strategy, I think, at this point would be to look at the results from Tuesday night, and you Democrats really ought to be looking at Gretchen Whitmer. She has demonstrated not only how to win in a very contested race in a very hostile environment. I mean, she was the target of a kidnapping attempt. I think a matchup against DeSantis and Whitmer would be absolutely fascinating.
Okay, 30 seconds left, Greg. I want your thoughts on this matchup we're starting to see play out between DeSantis and Trump.
Look, there's no one that's going to tell Trump what to do, that he's going to run or he's not going to run. He's going to announce when there's a runoff in Georgia, which you can argue would not be a positive to put that focus on Donald Trump at that time, or he might not. You can't say what he's going to do. But what I do believe is that if he decides to run for president, I would hope it would be after we're done with this midterm completely, after the Georgia runoff is finished. But let these candidates. I could not be more impressed and more supportive of Ron DeSantis as governor. I think he's done a phenomenal job. I support President Trump.
Okay.
Let the battle of ideas flow. Let's see what these states say in respective primaries. Let's see what happens.
We're going to have to end it on that note. Gentlemen, lively discussion. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.